All right, welcome to the Prospect Podcast. Slight glitch in the beginning. That's because I had the Husky Hoops podcast on earlier today. But we're excited to talk some positive performance and mental health performance for athletes, and dive deep into that today with our guest. I'm Coach Schumann. I'm here with Coach D, as always. 300 plus episodes deep, website up, prospectpodcast.com, I believe it is. Even I don't even know, but I know I did it. I know I made it. I know I made it there. I know that. I know that's what I did. It's actually looks pretty damn good. We'll soon have all that's it. Prospect Podcast.com. So we'll soon have all the images up and bios. We're starting to get all those up there. But with 300 plus guests and a regular life, it takes some time. So we'll keep working on that. It's actually really cool. So those are the people who come on. You can obviously, Coach D does an amazing job of reaching out to people and connecting. But now you can actually simply, if you go to that website, fill out the form, we'll get it, and then I'll send it over to Coach D, and Coach D will figure out if you're a good fit. Today's guest, we have Lindsey Wilson. We're really excited to talk. One of our big topics has become mental health. What's the best way to put it? Performance, I guess, within the sports realm and health and just health in general. With respect to their lives. Obviously, we talk a lot about athletes and coaches and maybe parents too as well. So we're excited to continue down that path with Lindsey. She really does some really great things in this space, and we'll let her dive in and kind of tell her story. So Lindsey, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me on, guys. I was totally jamming to your intro. It's like the whole week between that and Bad Bunny in my minivan. It's on.
Okay. You were able to understand Bad Bunny's words? Were you able to interpret it?
Afterwards.
Okay, good. Okay,
ChatGPT.
Exactly.
My favorite thing about the Bad Bunny thing is literally all the memes that he had to go off of Instagram or I think it was Instagram for a while, because there's so many memes where they pulled out his actual, just his voice, and oh man,
it's been funny,
brutal. It's hilarious, but people are brutal.
Yeah,
people can be brutal. So it's great to have you on. It's yes, our music. You can tell that we're from New Jersey. I love it. Get a little fist pumping going. We changed it up from what we were going with. And even though I loved our regular intros that we had, because I was using, I had like royalty-free use of the content. YouTube always goes and flags the copyright. I have to go dispute it and say that I have the royalty-free use of it, which I do through Canva. And then it gets approved. So I'm like, I'm just going to make my own song.
Yeah, there you go.
And thanks to AI, I'm also a music producer. So
many hats. I get
it. You type in a couple of words, the name of your podcast, boom. You got yourself a theme.
Yeah.
But yes, absolutely. It's great to have you on. If you could go and kind of dive into your journey in this space, and really go into how you got into it, your background, and then we'll dive into everything from there.
All right. Sounds good. So my name is Lindsey Wilson. I'm the founder of Positive Performance and the Mindset Coach Academy, and I'm a mental performance coach. I got into mental performance training. I always say people get into it for one of two reasons. Either they got mental performance training when they needed it, and they're so grateful that they want to pay it forward, or they didn't get it and they're a little pissed off and want to make sure that nobody repeats the kind of the pain that they had, right? I was the former. I got mental performance training at right when I turned 16 years old. I had a coach. Interestingly enough, I was really serious about I was a basketball player. I was really serious about basketball, wanted to play in college, was good enough to play in college, was doing all the physical work to play in college. And, on the court, I was shooting when I should have been passing and passing when I should have been shooting. And I just was in my own head and I didn't know how to get out of it. And my mom had a single conversation with a coworker who knew somebody, grew up with somebody, and all of a sudden I had a mental performance coach. I don't think he called himself that. He was a skill coach that knew about mental performance training. But it was a huge part of my training with him. And what I will say, and I think this is really true for mental performance training generally when it's done well, is it's almost like you learn things that are so simple that you're either like, I kind of already know this, or it seems familiar, or it seems like it makes sense, right? Mental performance training should not be this thing like, God, I don't understand how that works. It's almost like getting back to things that maybe have worked for you in the past, you didn't even know you were doing. And that was my experience. Like, it worked immediately because it was just these like really small mindset shifts. And I will tell you, I think the main thing, and this is really what I try to instill in my athletes and my coaches that are training athletes, is like the power that you get to control your mind and your thoughts, and that you are the driver of that. And I think what that does is just gives people a lot of hope, because a lot of people feel kind of like the passenger of their own brain, right? It's like some days I wake up on the right side of the bed and then I play well. I have no idea why I play well. I also have no idea why I play bad. And so that was the real shift. I would say that, and kind of along with that shifting thoughts, is you have the power to talk to yourself in a really nice and positive and uplifting way. And, positive self-talk is thrown around a lot, and excuse me, and it can be really taught in a wrong way. It can be a lot of toxic positivity. It can sound a lot like a motivational poster. But at its core, it's really about being intentional, not being easy on yourself, but being intentional with the words that you use. And so I learned that. And again, I was 16 years old. I didn't know what the heck I was doing, but I saw it work. And then really fast forward my whole career, I had an amazing high school career after that moment. I had an amazing college career. I went on Iowa State and had just an amazing experience, amazing time. We were really good. Like, it was awesome. And then I played professionally. I got drafted in the WNBA, did that whole, got cut, training camp, that whole song and dance, really my whole 20s, and played overseas. And I started my mental performance training company at about 22 years old when I graduated from college, because my whole career up until that point, I looked around and I saw so many of my teammates struggling with the exact same things that I'd struggled with, and no one was talking about it. No one was helping them. I am quite sure that if they had raised their hand and said, I need help, that they would have found help. But, this was around 2000 and no one was talking about this stuff. And I was like, this is crazy. Yep. And I kind of looked around and I was like, okay, so if no one's going to teach it, I guess it's going to be me. And I exaggerate. There were other people doing it, but that was sort of like the impetus for me starting my business. I didn't know what I was doing at all. I just knew what would work for me. And, I had really good connections because I played at a high level, and coaches that really knew me and trusted me. And so they let me come into their teams.
Damn right.
And the response that I got pretty immediately from going and working with college teams, and like elite college teams, like I was in women's basketball. I knew a lot of really good coaches. They brought me in, and the responses I got from these elite basketball players were, why have I not learned this before?
Right.
And so that's really how it all started. And that was 20 years ago.
Wow. Yeah. So you've really been in this for a long time. I'm curious, the evolution of it. Like, so where you had the resistance probably in the beginning, do you have that same resistance? Like, what is a lot of things changed in that industry since you started?
A tremendous amount. Okay. It's probably an understatement.
Yeah, I bet.
I would say the tide started turning about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can think of things like Kevin Love talking about mental health. There was a great number of like Olympians that started talking about it. Just people started, it got ignited really. And then COVID happened, and people really started seeing, not just in sports, but just youth in general, what they were struggling with. And people started talking, and then emotional intelligence started being taught in school. So like the next generations that started coming up, we're just talking much more about their experience. I mean, my generation, we just didn't talk about, and I'm not talking about with our parents or our childhoods. I'm talking about just in the locker room, right? Like sports specifically.
Yeah, You didn't do
Yeah,
that.
and you guys are football, so it's probably even worse. But even in women's basketball, women
Definitely.
are generally pretty good about talking about things.
Yeah.
It's not that I wouldn't talk at all with my teammates, but it just wasn't like a general thing of like, I don't have confidence, or I'm struggling, or I'm super nervous for the game on Friday. Like, you just didn't really talk
Right.
about it.
Right.
And
I think that stuff only came out after, a couple beers, right? Like that's,
Right.
That's when maybe it would come out. And you look at, in comparison to football, where you got 100 dudes for the most part in a locker room, right? Like
Yeah.
it's easy to kind of hide in your locker or to just not have those conversations amongst the numbers, just sheer numbers, right? Like,
yeah.
Now you talk basketball and other sports where it's a more intimate type of setting, right? Like to now have those conversations, well, for the most part, like that could be used against you in some way, shape, or form, right? Because hey, I want that spot. Guess what? This one's weak at this. Let me expose that, right? Or if that's one thing that when we talked about, like,
or even coaches that don't subscribe.
100%.
So
right, like if that's not their thing, like, oh, she's not tough enough to
I mean,
play
I
at this
see
level.
it still now, Derek. I don't I obviously, since everyone puts everything on Instagram, right?
Oh shit, yeah.
So I see, like, even strength and conditioning coaches at the highest level of college, like the way that they still force feed certain things, like, you know what I mean?
Well, I think there's almost, I don't want to say that there's two separate schools of thought, but I think that's kind of
there is.
Right. Like when you look at it, and Lindsey, we talk about this all the time. As a coach, you coach the way you were coached, right? So our generation, from where we came from, like I wasn't going up and telling my coach, like, hey buddy, like I got some shit going on today. I don't really feel like I'm up to par and where it should be at right now. Right. Like that that wasn't how it was. Right.
Yeah.
Now,
No.
If a guy,
Me neither. No.
That happens. I get that 2 to 3 times a week now at a high school level. And as a coach, I've totally changed the outlook. Not that I wasn't open to that from the jump coming in at that. And we talk about this all the time too. Like, the era for me is I'm right in that era of where it started to change, right? Like the discipline, militant, do what I say type of coach, crush you into the ground. And you know what? Like, that's how we do it. And that's the only way. That was changing to a player's coach, which gets thrown around real loosely now, right? Everybody's a player's coach, more so because you have to be, right? Otherwise you're going to be in jail for the most part. Right. But I was right around that where it started to change, and coming out of when I stopped playing. Now it was almost, you had the old school coaches that were kind of towards the tail end of it. And it was almost that, hey, you can't do it like that anymore, or you can't say that, right? The Bobby Knights of the world that were getting like thrown into the limelight, the Mike Leaches when he was getting in trouble for doing whatever it was, like, and I think with the growth of social media, now that stuff is really come into the limelight, along with like what you said. And look, at being in education for over 10 years, right? The emotional aspect of what we teach nowadays, because you always kept that on the inside because you didn't want to be ridiculed or whatever by your peers. Now I think is you come to the forefront with that, because that was starting to take more of a grasp within the locker room and sports in general, just the world in general, right? Like if you think about the negative connotation that used to go along with, hey, you go to a shrink, like, you know what I mean? Like Tony Soprano opened up that door for a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
Like that, like, hey, here's this guy's going to somebody. It's now almost like,
what, you don't go to therapy?
Yeah, like, wait, you don't puke it out once a week? Like, what are we talking about here? Like, insurance covers that stuff, buddy. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's just, it's something.
It's different.
I mean, it's totally, totally different. And I know, like, especially in a women's basketball setting where that locker room is what, 12, 15 girls at the most, plus what, 4 or 5 coaches. I mean, or just look at coaching staffs. Like, there's a person like you on almost every staff at the highest levels.
At the highest levels, but in the medium levels, as you guys probably know, it ends up being the coach, which is why this is why I have a job. I'm training coaches because they don't get the training, and so everybody's supposed to be coaching in this new way. And essentially, what we're talking about is we're not just talking about mental performance. We're talking about the psychological safety of athletes, right? That they feel like they are held is not the right word, but they are in a place where they are safe to be who they are and bring who they are every single day. And we have to balance that with what's on coaches, which is a lot, right? Like you can't be the coach and the team therapist and, a lot of levels, the team manager and the equipment person and the bus driver and all the things, right? And then we're
Think
not
about
really
some of the
equipping.
things you've seen your coaches do. Like, you know what I mean?
And
Like,
they're not really equipped to all this. So a lot of what I'm doing is providing the toolbox that coaches and athletes can learn so that everybody, we have to have the psychological safety of the team, the vibe of the team.
right.
But after that, individuals have to be able to have a toolbox that they can go back to that prepares them, because sports is really hard. Everybody knows that it's physically hard. It is psychologically really hard. I don't care what level you're at, because whatever level you're at is the right size for your brain, right? Little league, going up to bat is hard, right?
Now, Lindsey, would you, and I don't want to cut you off, would you put that, when you were just talking about, is that the same as talking about, like you said, the team vibe? Would you constitute that as team culture, or are these two totally different things?
That's a good question. I think there's just a lot of overlap. I think you can do things that are specific for team culture when it comes to like captains and just general leadership stuff. But here's where like mental performance comes in. I think it's a little bit of a Venn diagram, I guess is what I mean, is because when people take care of themselves, you guys know this in any environment you're at, in your families, in your houses, in your businesses, in your work, when people take care of themselves, when they are good, they contribute to the group better. That's not
how crazy is it, Dave, that's what Lindsey, yesterday we had my personal, but like an orthopedic oncologist on, and that's literally was his entire outlook on what he did, right? Was if I'm not good as the doctor, like if I'm running myself into the ground, how can I perform this limb saving surgery? Or if you as the patient are not in a positive mindset of like, it's going to work out, I'm in the best hands, like it doesn't, like the outcomes aren't good when that's not follows along. So it's just, it's funny how it's lining up.
And I would also go a step further where it's like, if I'm taking care of myself, I'm better able to contribute, which I just said. And also when we're all doing the work, we're all talking about it, there's a sense of vulnerability and there's a sense of not being alone. Back to what we were talking about when we first talked about this, I think about my college experience. I was talking about this stuff because I had a coach. I had a mental performance coach that I talked to about this stuff at 16. I was lucky. I was really, really lucky. Again, that's why I'm here, paying it forward, right? My life and my basketball career would have been very different if I hadn't gotten that. So much of I would say just mental performance training, if any coach is listening and being like, I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know if I can teach it. I don't know if my athletes are going to buy in. The very like lowest rung of all this, which may be the most important, is when you start talking about this stuff, people feel less alone in their struggles.
Yep.
If that is the only thing you get out of mental performance training, it is enough. It is a huge improvement to what used to be happening or often happens, which is people think, I'm not feeling confident, I'm nervous, I don't feel good enough, negative self-talk, I don't know if I belong here, all those things.
I don't belong.
They feel that and they don't verbalize it and they internalize it. And that's when things get really bad. And so if we can help prevent that and have those conversations about failure, about really, again, how hard it is to be an athlete at any level, there is a psychological stress that comes from trying to do your best. That is also why we love sports.
Always.
But if we're not equipping people to handle that stress and then they fold, 20 years from now, they're at a bar stool drinking beer, wishing their sports career had been different, or blaming their coach or blaming their teammates or wishing they hadn't quit. That's the thing. And we have an opportunity. And that's really why I'm here on this podcast and just in my day-to-day work is I believe in the transformational power of sports. 10 times out of 10. That is like everything that I do in my life is I believe in that's why I coach my kids' teams. That's everything, right? And I believe that not everybody gets the benefits from sports just by osmosis. A lot of people do. but I think we can do a better job of making sure people learn those life lessons. And I think mental performance coaching really, really helps with that.
Talk about how that gets done. How you help people along in that process. Because I think that's the hardest part for families with younger kids, with teenagers, obviously even pro athletes. But obviously pro athletes at the highest levels can afford to bring, someone in personally to be able to walk them through that if they're willing to do it. But talk about what that conversation looks like and what that process is for people that might be looking to improve the way they handle their emotions, improve the way they could compete. Because I see that's even, as a coach, like coaching in high school, coaching. I mean, I was an NFL agent. I forgot to tell you that in the bio for 6 years too, as well.
Yeah.
So I've seen a lot of things. I've seen a lot of different things, and I find it interesting how some athletes are able to do certain things, and sometimes athletes that have similar capabilities, some don't seem to it. And I always talk about like in practice, right? Like when I deal with parents now at the youth level, high school level, I deal with it too. I don't know. Derek's still coaching high school. I don't know if he deals with it. He'd be able to answer that better than me now. But I mean, we do with our club because we have high school kids, but it's a little different. Like that club is really just about competing. We don't put the pressure on them. Any pressure they put is probably self-induced more than the high levels of you might be in a regular game situation. But yeah, what I've noticed is that like there are kids that struggle, right?
Yeah.
I happen to have a kid that I'm sure he struggles with stuff like that. He struggles on the emotional side if he loses, right? Like that used to be 3 years ago. That used to be like the Terror Dome. Like we were like, what would he do? Now he's learned how to handle it, even though I can tell you that he's not happy when he loses, but he knows that as he's grown up, he's learned that there's a way to handle that. But I say that because like I have kids that parents are like, man, he looks so good in practice. You put him in the game, he struggles, or you don't like the way that he's playing enough. But I see him in practice, and he looks just as good as XYZ.
Yeah.
But in the game, XYZ may not be as good as this other. Like, what is that gap that seems to happen sometimes between athletes?
I have a lot to say. Okay, I'm going to try
I'll let you
okay.
preface it so you had the floor on this. Yeah.
Yeah. Though there was a whole lot of questions in that.
Yeah.
Here's one of the things that I really try to instill in my coaches, my athletes, parents, whoever, right? Is there's a wide range of mental performance training skills. Because of our age of information, it can get really confusing as to what to do, right? A coach can read all the books, listen to all the podcasts, go to the coaching, clinics, and come back and be like, yeah, but what do I do on a Tuesday afternoon? No idea, right? And so there's a real gap between theory and application in a real world with limited time, with athletes with different schedules and all the things, right? So one of my jobs has been, how do we curate it down into really simple things? Really things that don't take a lot of time, that have a big ROI on implementing them with your team and can be built upon, right? So like if I'm working with an NFL player, I'm working on different things than with a 13-year-old, right? Right. And so they do build on themselves. And one of the things that we teach is we have a 6-step mental training curriculum. We call it the mental game plan. And essentially it's 6 steps. So one is really teaching athletes how the brain works, and coaches too, for that matter. Nobody really understands. And I'll go into that in a second. The other thing is like, what are some basic tools that really help us train our brain? One of them is thought management and how we talk to ourselves. I combine those two. And then visualization. Those are incredibly powerful tools that once you learn them, you can implement them in 2 minutes. Then we go into routines. This is often where a lot of people start because it's so simple to figure out a pre-practice routine. We have one, we call it the Braver. It takes 5 minutes. Once you set it up, it takes 5 minutes for everybody to do it together. Again, we got the team doing something together, prioritizing it. That message alone really, really helps. We have a pre-game routine. We have an in-game routine and a post-game routine. None of these take a lot of time. In fact, the mistake ritual takes about 20 seconds, if that, 10 seconds maybe. And that's often the thing that we teach first because it's so dang simple. Because one, then you're talking about failure. You're normalizing the experience of making mistakes, of being embarrassed, of not knowing what to do, of thoughts spiraling, of one mistake turning into 5 mistakes, of hanging your head, of like
being embarrassed is a big thing with kids today.
Huge.
Well, I always talk about this, especially for the level that I'm at. The 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, now into your freshman year, sophomore year of high school, like that is the I want to sit at the cool kid table era, right? Where the only thing that matters is not being like to be cool or to be, 100%. And whatever that definition is, right? By mainstream media of whatever it was, right? Like kids are brutal. Kids are mean. It is. I think it's part of it. I really do. I'm sorry. It is what it is. That's my outlook on it. Like everybody has to go through some level. The bullying thing is thrown around so much of like, I'm a big, like that's growing up. Sucks. Everybody deals with it. I don't care if you score 1,000 points on the basketball team, or I don't care if by definition, you got a 4.0, right? Which in our day, like everybody had a title, right? Like there was groups and tables sat together. That's what it was. You did not want to be at that cool table. It's still 100%. Look,
just different. People are nicer,
absolutely,
maybe about it.
And
but even if you're doing well, that's a way of sticking out,
no doubt.
Right?
And but that's that is the.
There's a drawback to that too.
That's what I'm saying. Like
that's the timetable where all that matters is fitting in and being part of the bigger collective, right? Where we talk about peer pressure and doing all that stuff of like, look, that's not who you are, but you wanted to be that guy. And that's what it is. So these kids, like nowadays, especially for me, like I said, at those age levels where that high school thing, like I see a lot of kids they wouldn't do it, or that's not how they were raised, but they're doing it to fit into that group. I find that
and you cannot play your best hesitating and worrying about the outcome. You just can't. That is impossible. Those two things do not exist. So I think your point is really valid, that's a lot of what we're doing is we're normalizing those discussions, and we're giving kids tools with which to overcome a lot of our brain's natural instinct, which our natural instinct is to stay in the crowd, to not take risks, to not make mistakes, to not do anything that's going to have us stick out. And that includes success, as we talked about. Like, and so that's one of the things. I mean, you see this a lot in female athletes too. They're the tallest one, right? They're the
at
best.
An early age.
That's uncomfortable.
They've hit puberty first, right? Like that's absolutely
very uncomfortable. And so if we're not giving kids the tools to deal with that discomfort, they're not going to accomplish what they want. And from a brain perspective, a lot of and this is what I just like, I want to get all the coaches in the world together. I want to teach them about brain. Is that my microphone? It kind of, I'm getting some feedback, but
I'm on mute. So might be Derek. Maybe you have a little feedback?
I don't have any. I'm good. I haven't.
Maybe is it me?
No, we're good. I don't hear anything.
Oh, you don't? Do you hear it, Dave?
I hear it. Yeah. Hold on.
Let me mute. Can I mute myself and see if it's?
It's Derek, because somehow I don't know why. Because let me just try and mute. Let me try and mute you.
All good. I can mute it.
No. Yep. That's so weird.
So one of the things that like I think again, so much of my mission is like, and it always has been since I was 22 years old, is how can I get mental performance training to more athletes? And it used to be me doing a lot of coaching like working with teams. And now it's a lot of me coaching coaches, so that we got a ripple effect of more mental performance coaches and more coaches that are trained in mental performance training. But one of the things that I think is really important, everybody throws around confidence a lot. I don't actually really think that it's confidence. I think that it's a skill set of being able to believe in your goals, being able to set goals, first of all, and being able to believe in them. Because there's a cognitive dissonance, right? And I remember this for myself as a high school player. Like, I'm a high school player. I want to play at the collegiate level. I wanted to play Division I. That is a big, uncomfortable feeling to not have accomplished your goals. And this is exactly why a lot of people drop their goals, right? If you have a disconnect between where you are and where you want to be, the way to make yourself comfortable is to drop your goals. That is like how the brain works, right? Because it's going to take a long time to accomplish your goal. So you have to hold that belief for long enough, and you don't know how long it's going to be, and you don't even know if you're going to get there, right? To hold that belief and that goal long enough that you can start creeping up. And so one of the things that I teach, just from a general mental performance training standpoint, is this idea of belief work, right? We're in the weight room, we're doing strength and agility, we're doing skill work. We need to work on our brain and belief. And in fact, Michaela Schifrin just talked about this. She talked about the difference between belief and confidence. And I could not agree more. Confidence is very based on your skill level. It's based on situations. Instead of the skill set of, I'm going to set a goal and then I'm going to do the work to keep my belief up. Because once your belief tanks, your brain is out of there. Whether you actually physically quit or not, I know you guys have seen this as coaches, whether you actually physically quit or not, this is what quiet quitting is. You start pulling back just a little bit. You don't stay late at practice. You don't push through discomfort. You just sort of settle. And that's your brain coming back to basically equilibrium and like deciding that comfort is worth more. And that is absolutely how the human brain works. And the only way to get over that is to train yourself.
And does that involve, so you talked about routines, right? The routines at both ends of it. I think that's really important. I thought the routines helped me tremendously as an athlete. I was like, that was how I worked through everything. But then the other part of it is putting yourself in situations, right? So you can learn to handle it. Like,
yep.
I mean, we were just talking, and it wasn't on the mental health side of it, but on the podcast I just had before, we were just talking about how UConn obviously is very highly ranked men's basketball. The women just dominate. So I just like,
Yes.
we talk for 5 minutes about them now because it's like, okay,
They went there, like not to date. Like,
it's the most boring conversation.
Yeah, no.
It's so boring, Derek. It's, we're like,
you're like, yeah, kick the shit out of these guys again. Like,
they're so good.
Yeah, they
have the best coaching staff, the best players in America. Okay,
and have since 90s, like what 90 whenever.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
but the men who are obviously really good, but they've struggled a lot late in games. So one of the things I asked, like, okay, so. Because we're not talking about mental health part of it, but we have Maria Conlon who played at UConn, and she won, like, I don't know, 4 national championships there when she was there, and she's part of the podcast. And I said, like, what do you do to try and fix some of their late in the game? They struggle getting the ball in balance. I mean, it's with really great players, obviously. Struggle the ball getting balanced, struggle the ball getting up the court. It's almost because it seems like it's maybe part of it's become a mental thing a little bit, like
get tight.
They lost a couple games. Their coach is a high pressure, intense coach, no doubt about it. And I wonder, like, wow, what would you do? So I asked her, like, what would you do in that situation? She talked about what Gino would do, like putting more people on the court and just a couple of different things. But I thought it was really interesting because she immediately knew situationally that's an important thing. Like, so. Obviously, that's something that's big within Gino's program, that she was immediately able to say, hey, Gino would do this, this, and this if we were struggling with it. It wasn't just about scheme. It was about, hey, put more pressure on them or put less pressure on them, figure it out first. And so it was like going back and forth. It was really interesting to hear that conversation. So I think that, like, improving that part, talk about, like, are there situations you can put them in? Obviously, the pre-routine is a big deal. To me, it's a big deal. I talk about my son all the time with this. Like, I call it priming. I call it priming yourself for play, right? Like, if you prime yourself, every time you've primed yourself, even if it's 5-10 minutes, like, you're better off because your body's ready. And the priming usually goes way before, like, we do it like maybe an hour before we even leave to go somewhere, but it's 5 minutes. Like, it's 5 shots. If it's basketball, 5 or 10 shots in the garage, the dot mat drill and your feet and your hip. And then we're like, cool, you're good. Let's go.
Mm-hmm.
And when he doesn't do it, I notice it's not that he doesn't play well, but I watch the first few minutes. He's actually priming the first few minutes of the game.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Right.
Well,
So
there's
that's
definitely
not what you want to do. You know what I mean?
And part of like the routine that we teach is there's a physical and a mental component, right? Like sometimes you need to burn off energy physically to get yourself mentally in the right spot, right? And so, but to your point, like I think there is a physiological response in sports that many athletes have. They're either scared of it, meaning pressure, nerves, and even just little things, the sort of like idea of like pressures of privilege. We talk a lot about nervousness really being excitement. And even just the way that you talk about it really matters. Like the words that you use either invoke the feeling of like, this is going to work out. This is going to be fun. This is going to be awesome versus like, oh man, I don't know what's going to happen. I hope it goes well. And that sounds so like simple, and it is, but it makes a huge difference. And so even little things like if you've learned how to breathe, if you've learned how to visualize, if you've learned how to find that, again, this goes down back to physical too, like practicing this in practice. But if you have learned to frame those situations as fun, as joy, as this is going to be awesome no matter what happens, versus the clinging to results. And this is the challenge with sports is we all want to win. We also have to perform as if we want to win and we don't care. This is the dance. Because if you cling too much to the results, you don't get the results. And that is like the kind of the mind twisting of sports that the mental training or any kind of mental skills or mental tools or even workshops or discussions about these things bring new awarenesses that help people respond better in those situations. It's not a panacea. It's not a magic thing that all of a sudden you learn how to breathe and you're great at the end of the game. But these things built over time allow you to have a skill set to rely on in those moments of stress. Because our emotional, and this is where like we have this mistake ritual, is we get emotionally dysregulated in games. And the coach does too. So many coaches get emotionally dysregulated and they have no idea. So that, the perfect example is everybody calm down, and they're screaming at everybody. And, I've done that to my own kids for sure. Right.
Everybody
but it's
does.
like, yeah. And so if the athletes are taking that feeling from their coach, they're going to get dysregulated. And so it's around and around we go.
Yeah. And it different coaches have different ways. Like there are certain athletes that respond to certain coaches the right way. Like, listen, if you play for Danny Hurley, I mean, if you can't handle his style, that's not going to be the place to go play. I mean,
totally.
If you'd rather Patino style, like a little more polished, even though he's aggressive, but he's polished.
Totally.
Or football wise, like you could play for the Indiana coach who's encouraging but never satisfied, right? So like he's always looking to get everything a little bit better, right? And these are guys that win at the highest level. So some of the things that then there are other coaches that are super. People will point to Tony Dungy, right? Super calm, like a calming force. I think, and I'd love for you to talk about this. How do athletes get to figure out what styles they are better suited with? You know what I mean? And if they're not suited to a certain style, because sometimes like you go to high school, like you don't know, you're going to have to adapt to his style pretty much. Like he's not adapting to yours. Some do, but I would say the majority probably don't still in high school. Like it's just, they're getting better at it. But so how do you help the athlete through that process? Like it's a goal. It's gold when, your style and the coach style match up, whatever that style is. But most of the time there's differences, right? And so how does an athlete learn to understand themselves, get them to a place where even if their style doesn't match with a coach, they can handle it? And
it's a really good question. And I have a really simple way of thinking about it. So when athletes this is true for just humans in general. Once you start believing something, you see more of it, right? If you think someone has a bad attitude as a coach, you're constantly seeing them have a bad attitude. You are not seeing the times when they're a great teammate, right? That is how our brain operates. It looks for patterns, right? And so one of the simplest exercises I mentioned earlier in our mental game plan, one of the really solid foundational tools that we teach is thought management. So a great example of this is an athlete that thinks their coach hates them. Okay. They are going to be repeating that thought to themselves constantly before practice, during practice, anytime a coach says something to them. They're going to notice all the ways they coach them differently than other people and how they don't like them. And what that does is it creates a cascading effect of demotivation, of them looking for only examples that fit in with their narrative. So they're reinforcing the story all the time. And they're going to get results that align with that thought. So if they believe their coach doesn't like them, they're literally going to do things that makes their coach not like them or not trust them or not, want to play them. And so they basically create the situation. And one of the things that we do as a mental performance coaches is we allow them to explore a different thought. It doesn't mean that neither one of these thoughts is fact. I think that's the core piece of all this. Thoughts are not facts. We tell ourselves a story about a situation. Every single person can be in the same room, experience the same situation, and have 10 different thoughts about what happened in that room. That is what happens with the human brain. And so when we ask athletes to think, what is a different way you could explain your coach's behavior? And we have them, try on the thought of, my coach is talking to me about these things because they believe in me, right? Or something
Great
even just
point.
neutral. Even just something neutral, like maybe this has nothing to do with me. Maybe my coach is having a bad day.
Well, I think the responsibility on coaches is when you make corrections is when most of this happens, right? Correcting the action, explaining them, you're correcting the action. You're not upset with the person or who they are as a human being. You're correcting the action. It's a huge, every coach has made that mistake. I'm not saying, I've made that mistake. I'm sure Derek's made that. Everybody's made that mistake, especially when you get emotional. But trying to really err on the much more side of that, I want you to understand this part has to get corrected. This has nothing to do with you as a person. I'm correcting the action so your performance is better on the field, or your behavior, or whatever the action that has to be corrected. Because I think that one of the things that I see happen, and I see this happen a lot more in youth because they're not as trained, but I'm sure it happens in high school still. I'm sure. And I'd love for Derek to talk a little bit about this too, but I'm sure it happens in high school still. But where coaches don't understand the difference between someone who's intense and wants to really win, and they mistake it for someone being out of control. Okay. Mm-hmm. And with younger kids, and I would say even up to the early stages of high school, you have probably, when guys become juniors in high school, I think if they are how they are going to be for the most part, but you want to, if they're maturing, it's starting to mature, they start to understand those things, especially if they have good coaches, they start to. But I think when they're younger, when they're moldable, coaches have to encourage intensity and correct the actions versus I see coaches slow guys down all the time. I see it all. It drives me absolutely crazy. As someone who's now coaching, I've roped into every youth thing possible somehow. And I'm always and I'm like, why are you stopping somebody? Like when they say, don't shoot that three. Let's use that example. Or don't throw the ball there without an action to correct them. You know what I mean? Or don't take that soccer shot from that far out, right? Well, that person's never going to take that shot again, right? Okay. And what you really want to say to them is, hey, not in that situation, or or a guy's covering you, pass the ball, we might have a better shot. But they say it in the action, and then they wonder why all of a sudden the player isn't shooting the ball. I see coaches do this all the time. Every coach has probably done it at some point, but one of the things I've always worked hard to do is like pull them aside and say, hey, listen, the reason why I don't want you to shoot as many threes, let's say, for example, as you're shooting, is you're 0 for 8 on them. Okay.
Yeah.
Today you're probably a little off. I'm not saying don't shoot if you get open one, but let's not shoot the contested ones right now. We're not on fire. Find a better shot. Okay. And then and that's for today. That doesn't mean tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Like I tell them, that doesn't mean tomorrow. I want you to come out firing tomorrow, and you're on fire. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But today, in order to win X game today, I might need you to drive to the basket now because you're struggling with your 3-point shot. But what a lot of coaches will do is stop shooting the 3. I see it all the time.
Yeah.
Stop shooting the 3 and don't get them to the side and tell them why. Quickly tell them why. Okay. And I think it's very and elite. It's year after year, right? So when people say youth athletes get burnt out, and I don't know that they get burnt out. I would say they more probably get discouraged at their progress, like you talked about earlier. They get discouraged at their progress and say this sport isn't for me per se. And coaches have a lot to do with that. Because and I think it really have a lot to do with the young levels. I'm not saying there's a way to correct it because a lot of these guys are volunteers and they're giving their time and they're doing the best they can. So that's hard because there's not enough people that do want to help out. And you know this, having children, not enough people want to help out. Really not. They rely on other,
for most of them, it's a babysitting service, right? They're not as invested.
Well, and I'll just add in one little
but
thing.
The kid might be good, and then they rely on you to do that. And I think that's a mistake too. Like you got to sit in the seat a little bit as a parent if you're going to coach youth sports before you get on another guy, right? But I think that there are ways that you could help the coaches to understand that. Like so. Rutgers Safety Clinic does a nice job of this, where they make it mandatory in our town for youth athletes to do it. It's a first step in it. It's not really it's not like a certified mental health thing, but it's like, hey, things you want to talk about and not talk about.
Well, what I would also say is there also needs to be more female coaches.
There is, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
I don't know how many listeners you have that are female coaches, but even people that have females in their life, encouraging women that have even not that much experience, especially at the lower levels. A lot of times it's the dads that volunteer that never played basketball or never played soccer, which is great.
Why can't mom?
Why can't mom? And I would just say if for any of your listeners, if you're a woman or if you're a woman, you're probably already coaching and for listening to this podcast. But if you're a man and you have women in your life, encourage them to coach. Especially, I coach 8 and 10-year-olds. I do not need to have been a professional basketball player to do that.
Right.
Or with the access you have, I'm like, wait, they don't know this stuff.
Well, or like I was gonna, the access that you have to kind of go and kind of develop those coaching skills, the X's and the O's of whatever. Like if you're a parent, you can coach, right? Like to me, because
1,000%.
There's no doubt. It's one of the first things that going into starting the girls flag program, where I'm at now, I said to our head coach, I said, buddy, like we got to get a female on staff. Like there's no doubt because, for 2 males to be coaching, I said, that's great. And they can love us to death and whatever. I said, but there's always going to be some part of that where a female gets to them more than we do in terms of that connection. And I just think it's necessity across the board. I think more moms should get involved. There's no doubt. I don't think they should be deterred by the fact that they've never played or they don't understand this or they don't look like just care. That's really all it comes down to. And like we can teach you all the other stuff.
Yep.
I think it's a great point.
I think that's actually a great point because a lot of it gets siloed, right? Dad does the sports thing. Maybe mom helps with the academic side. You know what I mean? And rarely is it flipped or whatever. but I do think it can make a big difference, because as a young kid, there's two different perspectives, right? Like there's two different styles, like a male style and a female style. I mean, there might be a female that's, really loud or aggressive, but
That would be me.
I'm not shocked, by the way. I'm not shocked.
No, I'm really positive, but
no, I'm not saying you're not positive. I'm just saying, no, I could see being intense. Just the fact that you're the first person to ask us our bios before the pod, I think, right? Did anyone else ever ask us our bios?
I literally walked into the gym the other day, and my 10-year-old, we're watching another team play before, because I coach my 8-year-old and my 10-year-old, and my 10-year-old looks at me and she goes, "Why can't you be more like that, Mom?" I was like coaching quietly, and but yeah, just to like really hit that home, I think so many women need to be asked to coach or encouraged to coach. And so, Derek, if you're doing that and you're on the hunt to find a woman, and
Constantly.
I bring my kids are running through practice because they're 8 and 10 years old. So my 3-year-old is interrupting practice, and guess what? Who cares? Right. Like, and so I think a lot of, like you said, Dave, like a lot of women are like, well, I got to go get dinner and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, your kids are on the side. It's okay. Strap them to your back. And I would also just say that, like,
even if you're really just there, even if you're not the main coach.
Yeah, exactly. Be an assistant first. You don't have to know anything. And I would also just say that, like, it's not just about sports. I mean, this might sound obvious and maybe people already know this, but I just want to say it anyway. It's like, it's not really about coaching. It's not even really about sports. It's about little boys and little girls seeing women in leadership positions, seeing women in charge. It is so important for their entire lives that they have had a woman coach, because sports does have a hierarchy, and it has built-in leadership. And it's a really important thing for, and I would say, kids to see that.
I think that's a great point too, because like even with like you see women in more of a leadership position, whether it be coaches or whether it be principals, administrators, right? Like CEOs, like your boss may be a woman. And if you've never had that experience or that interaction, I think it could be, it could be detrimental to you to kind of just understanding that world. I'm not talking, that there's such a eye-opening difference, but there's differences, and it is what it is. It's why when we see like women now, with the evolution of flag football or just women in the game of football itself, right? Like you're seeing women that are coaching at a higher level or doing some of these things. I think it just adds to it. Meanwhile, you still have a side that's like, well, they've never played the game, so what can they contribute to it? Well, they can contribute a hell of a lot, because that different perspective, they may see things that you've never even thought or never even come across that, oh, you're right, or an angle or just something that can benefit. I just think the more the merrier, I guess, is kind of like, my philosophy. I would 100%. Look, how many times do we see women in roles of an athletic trainer, and now as a male, like there's just a disconnect because it's a female trainer, right? Like that's a whole different experience. Or injuries, right? Now my PT is a female, right? And she may be tougher than a male, because you know what I mean? It's just, I just think the more like the more you can see in those world, like the more that happens, or it opens your eyes to it, right? I just think the better of a well-rounded human being you can be moving forward. There's no doubt.
It's important.
So we talked a little bit about the early part of strategy, the strategies that they could have to prepare themselves. You talked about the mistake strategy, right? Like handling mistakes. Talk a little bit about what they could do from that standpoint, because that's definitely something that always can be an issue for athletes. She might be frozen. She frozen for you? Is she frozen for you?
Okay. I'm not sure what's happening.
Oh, all right. You're back.
Okay.
You're back.
Anyway. So
did you hear the question? I don't know if you heard the question.
You're talking about the mistake ritual. So I call it a mistake ritual or a reset ritual. And essentially, so implemented it. And then when I was a professional basketball player, I was going for a game-winning shot and I dribbled the ball off my foot.
Ooh.
And everybody has this experience, right? Where they did something just totally ridiculous, embarrassing, almost cost us the game. And I go back to the bench and I had this routine, right? Because in that moment, you're going to get dysregulated, right? Because it's a very disappointing thing. Like your body's going to react physiologically, right? And when that happens and you're going into basically fight or flight, your brain can get hijacked and it can basically go on the negative train. Okay. And the negative train is, I'm the worst basketball player in the world. Why are they even paying me? I can't believe I dribbled the ball off the foot. I let everybody down. My teammates are going to hate me. My coach is going to pull me out of the game, like whatever. Right. And if you don't have anything to go to in that moment, that's what happens. It doesn't matter how many high fives your teammates give you. It doesn't matter what pats on the back. Your brain is gone. And I know you've seen this both personally probably and from a coaching perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And so really what we need in that moment is a routine to ground us. And this is what I did in this moment. And depending on the sport, but for most sports, you're going to have a deep breath, you're going to have a hand motion, and you're going to have a word or a phrase. So it looks like this. You're going to, like for me, it was, I put my fingers together. I took a really deep breath and I said, be present. You can also, depending on the sport, like I said, you can add in a visualization component. If you don't have a hand ability to do a hand motion, you can work it. It doesn't actually matter that much. The breath does matter, but the rest of it is really kind of choose your own adventure. The key with it, and this is why it worked for me in that moment, because I went back, the other team called the timeout to advance the ball. I went to the bench. I did my routine. I came back out. I played amazing defense because I was focused, hit the ball away, and my teammate made a game-winning layup. This was, I don't know, 15, almost 20 years ago probably, and I still remember it because if I hadn't reset, I would have gone out and thought the game was over, hung my head, maybe not played as high a defense, maybe fouled, whatever, right? Like I wouldn't have been in that moment. There's no guarantee that we were going to win by doing that routine. But the guarantee was that I was going to be present for that last play. Right?
Great point.
And that is really hard. It's really hard to kind of put that aside and be like, this is the play that matters now. There's 8 seconds on the clock. This is the only play that matters. And so I tell that story a lot because everybody's had those situations or will have those situations. And the reason the mistake ritual is powerful is not because you have a magical word. It's not because you have a magical hand signal. It's because you've practiced it. And so then we pull it back to doing it in practice, and we pull it back to our pre-practice routine. So I mentioned we have something called the Braver. The Braver implements the breathing and the reset word. So you're practicing it every day to start practice. The Braver is also visualization and affirmations. It's an acronym. So essentially you're doing that as a team before practice, okay? And this is why this stuff is so powerful for coaches, because it's like, everybody's like, I don't have hours to do workshops, but I do have 5 minutes or 3 minutes even. So you're doing your pre-practice routine as a group, okay? And then, again, depending on the sport, but I'll use basketball, you're doing the reset ritual 10 times during practice. Every water break, every time an athlete gets pulled out of, weak side defense drill, shell drill, and they do it wrong. They're doing it then. They're doing it before everybody goes and shoots free throws. They're doing it in between drills, right? They're doing it over and over again. So they're getting those reps that their brain recognizes that they can calm themselves in those moments. And so again, I've taken all this like nebulous mental performance training, all these like have-tos, I should be doing this stuff, and distilled it down into like, okay, on game day or on a Tuesday afternoon practice, how does a coach with limited time and limited resources actually teach tools that work? And that is one of them. That's one of the biggest ones.
That's a great strategy. It really is good. It's the number one thing that takes players down a rabbit hole when they're struggling, is they don't reset themselves. And then
when a team does it, then teams can have words that they do together, but
Right.
most people don't. I would say most people, they pick their individual word or phrase, but because everybody knows it's part of your culture, when you pull an athlete out, you're reminding them to do it. When you see somebody struggling, you're reminding them to do it. Teammates are reminding each other to do it. So it becomes part of the culture.
Right. Not just right. Because everybody does it when they call a timeout, right?
Absolutely.
Yep.
But they don't, but when they take a kid out, they don't do it. And they usually don't even say anything to it. It drives me nuts.
Yeah.
It drives me nuts. And like football, I'm the head coach with my son's youth team. So I'm kind of cognizant more of these things, but I'm gonna apply some of this stuff as well. But like in basketball, I'm an assistant. And when you're an assistant, you're cleaning up something that might happen from the head coach sometimes, meaning like if a head coach pulled a guy out and he didn't say anything to him, like you go over to him and say, hey, listen, it's gonna be okay. You know what I mean? But I would love for head coaches, youth coaches to also say something to them, even if they're upset, to say something, because
you can't hear me either, Derek.
I can hear you.
Can you hear Dave?
I can hear Dave.
Oh, you can? What did he say? I didn't hear it. For some reason, I can't hear him.
You can't hear me? Let me try.
Oh yeah, I can hear him. I can hear him clearly. That's weird. That's crazy. Sometimes this StreamYard.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, but Derek can hear you the whole time. I couldn't hear you.
Yeah.
All right. So what I was saying is that
we call that selective. My wife does the same thing to me too. Like, she turns it off too. Like, I know how that works.
I heard you say that you're doing cleanup.
So yeah. So when you're an assistant, you're doing a little more cleanup, meaning something you see the head coach do something. And
that's a great point too, Dave. Right? Because I think that has a lot to do with it too, Lindsey. Like the whole female on staff type of thing too. Like everybody understands how there's a good cop, bad cop, right? Yeah. And football is a little different because you have a massive guys, right? Yeah. Like there's 100, correct. And as a younger coach, I was very territorial over my players, right? If I'm coaching the receivers and you're not the receivers coach and you're not the head coach or the coordinator, right? And you're going and talking to quote my guys, I would get a little bent out of shape of like, hey, like coach your own people. That's how it works. You know what I mean? Because you take pride in your room. I also understand though, being a lifelong assistant, right? That's my job, is to kind of bridge some of those gaps.
Yes.
That the head coach has so many freaking things on their plate and they're handling the masses that, hey, he took you out, but let me tell you exactly why he took you out, right?
For sure.
He may come like, now I feel like it is a head coach's responsibility to eventually communicate and understand and circle back. But look, I can't have that conversation right now because there's still 5 guys on the court that we got to worry about. It's my job. And that's where that's where I think why staffs and assistants are so pivotal to it. They need to be able to speak you. They need to be able to be you without being you, right? And kind of get that point across immediately. Because if that guy comes out of the game and just walks by every assistant coach, sits at the end of the bench, and the guy and the equipment manager with the towel is the only one that talks to him, handing him the towel and the Gatorade, like we got problems. You know what I'm saying? Because now, hey, let's go get back in the game. Well, what the fuck? I don't even know why I was out of the game, right? You're already going in there with a certain mental side of it. That I think is something.
Or if a dad or a mom is an assistant coach, sometimes I do it with my kid. Assistant coaches can help out greatly because sometimes there's parent kid when they're coaching their own kids, and you get on your kid, and sometimes you get on your kid a little more than you should. It's funny.
So I've been told.
If you watch me as a head coach versus I'm 2 different people as a head coach versus assistant. So like as an assistant, I understand what it's like to be a head coach. So I understand what his kind of priorities are.
Yeah.
So I try to kind of be a counterbalance. So how I handle my kid when I'm an assistant is probably very different than when I'm the head coach. But I think assistants can help out with that, right? Sometimes the dad who's coaching the team, coaching his kids, sometimes harder than he needs to be, right? And assistant can help out with that. Or the assistant maybe is a dad and he's all over his kid. The head coach can pull the sun, the sun aside and say, hey, it's all good. And most rational parents, because I say rational because they're irrational as well, but most rational parents want you to do that with their kid. They want you to do it. Like when I see it being done with my kid, I'm very glad. Like I'm so glad that somebody goes and does that, because at that moment I'm probably angry anyway, right? So I'm gonna go talk to him in about a minute. But right now I got to calm myself down as well, right? So because sometimes you have false expectations of what your kid could do, especially if you think your kid's a good athlete. You somehow magically think that they can do everything, and that's what parents are.
I think that we're like, from my perspective with all that is like, so many coaches are doing like the hard work, like the grind, right? Like you're on the bench, in the locker room, like on the buses, like having these really important mental performance, essentially conversations. You're handling the psychological, mental, emotional support. You're that for your team. And I think where mental performance training comes in is it gives you more tools, and it gives the athletes tools. I would say tools and awareness that deepens those conversations. So it's not just you saying, hey, not that you guys are saying this, but like believe in yourself. It's like, how are you talking to yourself? Take a deep breath. What is your brain doing right now? And when athletes really understand even just basics of how the brain works, even basics of the fight or flight response, even basics of how the brain tends to be more negative than positive from a survival standpoint, or tends to want to conserve energy if it thinks it's not going to work out and kind of pulls back and quiet quits. When an athlete understands those, and again, age appropriate, that support becomes more impactful, because it's not just you saying words, right? And I think that's where the struggle comes from a lot of coaches, at least a lot of coaches that I talk to, is, again, they're the equipment manager, they're the coach, they're the X's and O's, they're watching film, they're driving the bus, and they are the emotional and mental support for God knows how many athletes that are on the team. And so if everybody's a little bit more equipped and there's some routines that are already built in, immediately your job gets easier. And that's really where mental performance, it's not in place of those conversations, it's not in place of coaching, but hopefully if it's done right and it's implemented from a team standpoint, everybody has their own little toolbox and everybody has a general understanding that this stuff is important. And again, the idea is that it makes your job easier. There's a little implementation in the beginning, but once it's implemented, you then have a team culture that talks about the mental side, that has routines built in, that athletes are talking to each other with conversations that actually matter. People are supporting each other. They're reminding each other to do the mistake ritual. Your captain's running the pre-practice visualization. So it's less burden. And I think the longer I've done this, the more I feel really passionate, and obviously coaching myself. If we can take just a little bit off coaches, just a little bit, to make their job easier,
great point.
More athletes are going to benefit from that.
Absolutely great point.
There's no doubt. I think, Lindsey, when you implement it, it's just like, like, hey, you take over a program that's never had any, there's so many things to kind of hit the ground running with, right? And it's this, it's that, you're all like, this stuff you need in place, in my eyes, before anything, because now, again, it makes the job easier in the long run, because it's one less thing, and now it's something that's implemented from day one. And then by the time that first group that you've coached gets to the senior year or whatever it is, now it's this is what we do. This is how we do
this things. Is how we do it. Absolutely.
Right. And I think if it's something, and I literally think it's something as simple as just a conversation and an opening to like, hey, this is how we're going to do things, or this is what we're going to do. We're going to talk about these things. I want everybody to be open about this. Like, this is how it's going to work. Like, boom, now you're hitting the ground running with it, so that eventually, like, those leaders or those guys that have now gone through it, when those other younger guys come in, like, hey man, like, this is what we're talking about. Hey, this is how we do it. Right. I just think it's all in how you approach it and structure it. right? It's obviously harder in the beginning, especially if it's something that has never been talked about or never come across before. But then it also it spreads like wildfire when there's a success or somebody sees how it's actually working in a positive manner. Now, when they switch seasons and go to another sport, now they talk about it and say, Coach, maybe I would like to do this with the team. Or, you know what I mean? When you have that player-led type of situation, like that's when you really can say, hey, okay, now we have, we're not just a team, we're a program, we're an organization, right?
I'll give you another example. So, and again, my whole job is to make this stuff really simple, right? Because simple gets done. Complicated, PhD level, academic BS does not work for people that are like on the football field, in the gym, again, on a Tuesday afternoon practice. It just doesn't work, right? So one of the things that I also implement, I did this with an SEC team that I worked with last year, is a journaling, okay? And in particular, a post-game routine. As you guys know, most athletes are highly emotional after games. They are either ecstatic because they played well, their girlfriend was there, you won, whatever, right? Or they're down in the dumps, blaming other people, feeling like they're the worst player in the world. And it's highly emotional. And neither one of those positions actually leads to a lot of productivity or self-reflection or improvement, right? If you think you did well, you kind of move on, go get ice cream or pizza. If you think you did bad, you don't want to even think about it, right? And so one of the things that we teach is really this idea of being able to critique your performance without criticizing. This is a skill set. This is something that a lot of people are not very good at, but it is a framework. And then having them journal after competition really, really quick. 3 things: something they did well, something that didn't go well, and something that they want to get better at. And that alone allows people to learn the skill of actually looking at their performance in a way that is not overly emotional. And so it's things like that once you implement them, they're designed to be really simple, really easy. And again, to your point, it's like it becomes part of the culture that it then builds on itself.
I think that's a great point. Once it becomes part of their culture, there's no doubt that they can continue to build on it. Before we let you go, are there any things that you would say athletes should do right now to start helping themselves from a mental performance standpoint? That few actions that they could do tomorrow that could start getting them on their journey.
Yeah, I mean, I think any of the things that I mentioned, choosing one, like journaling, I think getting thoughts down, especially when you're when you're emotional after games, for example. Right. I think breathing from a nervous system standpoint, a self-regulation standpoint, actually practicing deep breaths is really, really beneficial. And visualization is one of the most powerful tools that we have to use. And I think a lot of people overcomplicate it. I think it is a nice thing to learn to do sort of more officially, but if you can't, just know that we're all doing it naturally anyway.
Right.
We're deciding what we want for dinner, and we're probably kind of thinking about it and maybe even tasting it, or at least seeing what it's going to look like. If we want to get a hamburger for dinner, we start thinking about it ahead of time. And if we want a new car, we start thinking about the car well ahead of time. We start dreaming about it. And the interesting thing about the brain is once you start visualizing something, this is exactly how advertising works. We start doing the things to put in place to go get that thing. That is why visualization is important. And you can think of it. I always give it the hamburger example. If I decide I want to have a hamburger tonight, then I start doing the things that are going to lead to a hamburger. I decide that I might decide to order a hamburger. I might start thinking about when I can go get a hamburger. I might go to the grocery store. I might think about what ingredients I need, right? And those all sound like simple steps. But if you don't know that you want a hamburger, there's zero chance you're going to do those things.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt. And I know not to cut you off, speaking from a personal standpoint, like visualization was one of the biggest tools for me, right? In my, as an athlete, even as I guess as a coach, it's a little different when it comes to it. I can still, you visualize guys doing certain things and whatnot, but as a player, always being an undersized type of underdog mentality kind of guy, right? Like never would the visualization aspect of like, I'm going to make that play and I can actually see myself doing it was probably the biggest tool in why I was, any somewhat successful at those things, is because I would play that game in my head, right? I'd play one on Thursday night, I'd play one on Friday night, and then Saturday, like here it was in, at the college level, like this is what's going to happen. And I will tell you, like, be damned if some of those things didn't directly happen, literally, like spitting image, if you could print it out on paper, like from what was in my head to what happened, because you're thinking it into existence. And if you don't have that belief in that you're going to accomplish it or you're going to actually do it, it doesn't matter what else goes into it, right? And the brain being so powerful. And I think too, like once, and I talked about it a little bit before, once guys actually see it work, they're going to be more in tune to do it. And then they're going to tell others to do it too. And I'm not saying it works for everybody, but I'm saying at least try it, right? And then take it from there. And you put your own spin on it because it's very individualized. There's no doubt, right? But if you don't try it or you're not willing to it, and as athletes and competitors, if you're not trying everything under the sun and willing to do some things that somebody would call you crazy for doing or whatever it is, like, are you really the level of athlete that you think you are if you're not willing to do those things or kind of be the non-norm, right? To be good or get better at what it is. I think that's part of it. You know what I mean? Like that's, you got to be willing to try something else or something different or whatever that is. Like you're trying to gain an edge in any facet and whatever it is. Right. And I think that's one of the great things about social network, the social networking, right. Or the social media, like that aspect of like eye-opening to certain things. It's like doing this podcast, talking to so many different people across so many different fields and so many different, categories of whatever it is. Like it doesn't work for everybody, but it's something to go and see, and maybe it might, right. And like that eye-opening stuff of like things that we've now learned, and either like, you may not go and use it, but at least it's more tools in that toolbox, just from talking to other people about these things across the board. It's the best part of doing what we do here is having those conversations where people can bring things to the table and say, well, we do it like this, or we talk about this, or that in itself. It's been absolutely phenomenal to kind of add to the toolbox as you move forward, and then go and tell others about it and spread that. Like, I think that's the best.
No doubt. Well, this show has been great. It's really helped me understand a little bit more to things that, like, it's funny because we relied on when we were.
I can't hear Dave. Can you hear him, Derek?
Yeah, I can hear him. That's so weird.
Yeah, it is so weird. Can you hear me? No.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
There you go.
Can you hear me now? No?
You still can't hear him, Lindsey?
Now Lindsay's frozen, I think.
Well, now she'll come back.
There we go. I'm back. I can hear you guys. I don't know.
There we go.
Okay, good. All right. What I was gonna say is that like you develop the athletes in the older days, really the ones that were really good, developed these kind of routines to an extent on their own, or maybe their parents or coaches helped them with those routines. But now it's obviously there's a place you get information on what to do on this, which is really great. Because it was before, like I remember, playing. I used to come in. I had an exact thing I used to do, and like I would. A lot of the guys were like, "Why do you do all that?" I'm like, "That's how I'm able to stay locked in. That's how I'm able to stay. I feel better about the opportunity to play when that's the situation." So it's interesting. I can't thank you enough for coming on. Really, really great stuff. And before we let you go, talk about where people can find you and reach out to you and all those kind of things.
Yeah. Excuse me. I'm on Instagram at Lindsey Positive Perform, and my website is positiveperformancetraining.com. And really our goal is we basically have two sort of avenues. We coach athletes. Sorry, we coach coaches that are sports coaches that want to implement mental performance training with our mental game plan curriculum. And so coaches get trained to implement mental performance training with their team. And then we have a certification program where people that want to start mental performance coaching businesses and probably use it with their teams as well can come and train with us for 4 months. We have a dual certification program. You get certified as a positive performance mindset coach and a performance visualization specialist. So we teach visualization in a really cool way, just all based on peak performance. Everything that we teach is through the lens of sports and athletes and competition. And a lot of former athletes and coaches come through our programs. And it's great because we have mental performance coaches really all over the world now that are teaching this. And it just goes to, again, my original impetus for doing all of this was I believe athletes need and deserve mental performance training. I think they're going to have a better experience through sports. I think they're going to get so much of the transformational life lessons that we all want them to get. And I also really believe that coaches need more resources. So
no doubt. There's no doubt.
That's what I do. Yeah.
That the whole coaches thing, right? Like nobody tells you how to coach, right? Like you really just, a lot of people just assume that because they were a player, they can go and coach. And it's so much more than that. I'm so glad that I have a teaching background, especially in the special education world, right? Because it's allowed me to connect on a different level. I'm so glad that the first couple of years of my career, I bounced around from school to school and, dealt with middle school teaching or high school teaching or inner city, suburban, right? Like big school, small school, private school, right? And, when you do that, you kind of get a little bit of you just bounce around from place to place. It's like, no, I want to find my niche and what works best for me. I'm glad that I always can fall back on those experiences of having dealt with so much variety when it comes to that, right? Like socioeconomic backgrounds and all those kind of things. Like, I just think coaches need so much more training. It doesn't have to be formal in any way, shape, or form, you know what I mean? But yes, that does help. I love it. I just wish more administrators would kind of go invest more in their coaches rather than just like, here's what he is and what it is. And then, the constant, searching of knowledge and tweaking things and changing things and learning more about it, because we can all get better and we can all learn from each other. That's the best coaching that's out there is, literally talking to others that are in the same situation that you are. And I think what you're doing is really great, putting together something for coaches to kind of learn that side of it, something that is so much more in the forefront now, with the highest of high level athletes coming out and talking about some of their struggles and whatnot. And, to kind of finish it all up, like for parents to understand of like what their kids or their athletes or, whatever it is are really going through, and that like, you don't have to be the end all or have all the answers. There are people out there that do this and really understand it and are willing to help you. And we want the coaches to be better, right? Like you're not going out there trying to, lose or trying to, put a negative context on your kid to make them hate the sport or hate what they're doing, right? They want the best for them. So for parents to understand that aspect too, I think is critical. So what you're doing is great. I really appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks
awesome.
for the platform.
No, it's been awesome.
No problem. Have a great day.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Excellent. Good stuff.
Cool stuff.
Oh yeah, very interesting.
Think about how crazy people probably looked at her when she was 16 years old with a mental performance coach, like in the 2000s. Like, wait, what? Like, wait, what? I don't know. I just think it's a side of sports, dude. Like nobody really talks about, it's supposed to be fun and it's this and it's that. Yeah. But like the pressure you put on yourself as an athlete every day to perform or just be in that spotlight, right? Like, I just think that's so crazy, for people to kind of not understand that, right? It's just, they don't, because, not many people play sports at a higher level, right? After high school, like, who really understands that? But even the pressures that a middle school kid puts on themselves of just that fear of just running onto that court is something that's, not spoken about or not brought to the forefront of like, you know, like just that in itself, you know, it's wild, you know, the pressures, the all of the things that go into it, man. Like, why do you have those sneakers on? You know what I mean? Or like just that little thing, like some of that little shit like that, dude, like middle school, high school, like that's wildfire. So to get the mental side of it and be positive about it, man, it's just so important.
There's no doubt about it. It's something that you can always improve, and young athletes have to start it earlier than not.
Right.
That's what I think. But
yeah, the earlier you started, it becomes part of that routine. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like now it's, hey, I do this every day, or, you know, look, I've been writing in a journal after a game since I was in 6th grade. Like that's freaking phenomenal. Like that would be awesome. Like, you know what I mean? Imagine if Michael Jordan had done that from the time he was cut in high school to the time he won, you know, whatever, however many at the end of his career. Imagine publishing that. Whew.
Oof. Be a bestseller right there.
No doubt. Yeah. No doubt. Good stuff, man.
All right. Are we back tomorrow?
Yeah, tomorrow we have Missy Mitchell Macbeth. She's a trainer, right? Strength and conditioning from the female side of it perspective, right? Trains male athletes. Like she's awesome. It'll be interesting to see her take on the whole strength and conditioning world.
No, does a lot of podcasts. I see we had the Fit Soccer Queen right on. We had them.
Yeah. She does a bunch about ACL tears in high school girls soccer. She does a bunch.
Like I see,
and she don't play.
No, she talks a lot of it. I think she had Kula on the other. No.
Yeah, she had. I know she sat down with one of them. She might have sat down with Tony at some point.
She definitely sat down with Tony. I saw that one. I saw the one she sat, because her and Tony, I think they talk.
Yeah, no doubt.
I think she mentioned it when we had her on. I think I remember that.
But and Missy is in that Dallas Fort Worth area too, Texas style. So you know what I mean? Like that's, you know what I mean? Like she's in the hub of like a lot of shit that's going down. So it would be really cool to talk to her and get her perspective on it.
Well, there's no doubt about it. I wonder if we could ever do a conference bringing together all of our guests, or the majority of our guests.
It's a lot of plane tickets.
No. They'd have to. We'd set it up where it's an opportunity for them to get in front of people. You know what I mean? I think the overwhelming majority of them, that would be beneficial for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
or you do it regionally. You do like, you know, one here, one.
Well, you could definitely set that up and do it
have
all,
a lot of people in Texas, right? And then we have.
Well, I'm saying like you could do it, but I mean, like you wouldn't have to have it like boots on the ground. You could do it all like stream. You could just stream it. You know what I mean? And do like a whole day of like, idea. Hey, here's what it does. You know what I'm saying? Like, and just, you know, now everybody. That might be a good first step. Yeah. Now you don't have to travel right now. And then look, if you want to do, and then you could have breakout sessions from it and whatnot, or whatever.
Right on Zoom, you could do it. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. You just put it right through there. You do a whole day of whatever. Hey, this person's speaking at this time. This person's speaking at that time. And I don't know. I think that would be the easier way to do it if you want to actually get them all in one spot at one time.
That's right. You could do it over the course of like a week.
Yeah, you know? I mean, yeah, you could be, hey, tonight's so and so speaking, or hey, this one's, you know what I mean? Like you could do any of that. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, actually, let's do it. So I'll set that up. I'll set up the structure, and then obviously you have all the. I mean, you could tell me who you want me to reach out to, or whatever. You know, we split it up. You know what I mean? That's right. It's faster, because that'll take you forever to do it yourself. 300 people.
Yeah, well, we'd have to really look at it too and be like, all right, who do we actually want? Like, you know what I mean? Like, where do we want to go?
Yeah. Well, you can put it out there and say who wants to do it of the guests that we've had.
Right.
Talk about their topic, and I mean, there's some that are going to be more apt to want to do, or maybe we focus it in a certain arena. We have one for. I think we have enough to. We do one focus.
Oh, no doubt.
The S&C world, another one focused.
Oh God, yeah.
You know, another one focused in the football coaching world, obviously, or maybe just have it coaching in general, and then another.
Yeah, you could do it generally coaching wise, and then because I mean, obviously we've run the gamut with multiple sports, you know.
Yeah, I think high school coaches would be great for that, because it's not just about, you know, what they're doing X's and O's wise. Like one of the things I found that's been really good about this podcast is that I think most coaches expect. I mean, we've talked X's and O's with some of the guys, but for the most part, it's not just about like X's and O's. And I think that's
right. It's more
kind
about
of
like team and kind of what you do as a culture and all those kind of things. But we could steer it that way too, because you know what I mean. If we went and said, "Hey, we'd love for you to talk on," like the Bixby guy, like, "Hey, we'd love for you to talk on your offense," like, bam, like now you're going and you can just rock with that, right? So you could angle it, or or do any of that type of thing, any way you want, right? Because I'm sure a ton of these guys would love to talk their X's and O's, you know what I'm saying? Or do that type of thing. Like we just don't usually get to it because all the other stuff is awesome. You know what I mean?
I think it'd be really good. And then you take it and you up, and then we got more evergreen content, you know what I mean? And we can put that into courses for them, and then create a share value, you know what I'm saying? Like where we could share the money with them. You know what I mean?
Oh, so yeah. First guy that comes to mind, like PJ Gibbs, he just launched his page. Like he would be all over that.
Yeah, exactly. So we create that and within a page, and then we put all their content, and it'd be a lot better than like the Frank Glazier thing. It's great that Frank Glazier has all that stuff up there because they have so much old content that's amazing.
Oh yeah, they have the Glazier Drive. That's probably what saved it, to be honest. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
that's probably something that saved it, because without that, I don't know if you know what I mean. Like the in-person stuff is great, but
oh yeah, you went this weekend, right? You went.
Yeah, I was in AC for Friday. Yeah, Friday. I went Friday. It was good. There were some really good speakers.
It's not the same though as pre-COVID, though, right?
Well, yeah. I want to say I mean, it's getting back there. Like, but you know how it is. Like, guys are either there because they want to be there, or guys are there because they don't. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Where is that is the nice thing about the online presentations, is that guys can go at their leisure, you know what I mean, and
Correct.
And really dive into the things that those guys do well. So I figure out a few. I don't want to get too crazy, too many tracks, but maybe 3 or 4 tracks that we can
especially coming into this busy season.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we could probably schedule it towards the end of May. Because that's leading up to everybody.
You got to find that sweet spot of, like, I almost want to say like early June-ish would be the best if you're talking coach wise, because they're finishing spring ball right before summer hit, right? Or you got to hit one in the summer and hammer it down and be like, all right, like this is when it's going to be, because everybody is like, look, it's not, summer is not a vacation. Summer is like, you're going, like, season started. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a really sweet spot, the January to mid-February, March time, I think, for kind of like, our audiences and whatnot.
Right, because March is between sports.
And it's kind of where a lot of the higher level guys have a minute or two when they're not on the road recruiting, right? They're just kind of preparing for spring ball. Season's over a little bit. You know what I mean? But look, I think it's tougher for those S&C guys right now, I think, but those guys are always willing to do it, even though this is their prime time of ramping up what it is. But it's funny because the Glazier guy hit me up this weekend. He's like, hey, man, do you want to talk this weekend in Greenwich? Like, he must have had somebody drop out or whatever. I'm like, buddy, those days are long gone. But like, for me, like, you think I could just flip a switch and be like, yeah, I'll be there on Saturday? Like, doesn't work like that anymore, dude. Like, sure, I'd love to come talk on spread offense, but you know what? Like, we're good. Like,
yeah, it's so funny.
You know how that is. Somebody was like, I can't make it. It's like, oh shit, last minute. Like, let me find somebody and go. Lindsey was awesome, man. Like, she was really good. Like, I wouldn't have wanted to play. She, like with some coaches, you can tell her just they're still pure players at heart. Like, she still got that with 4 kids and whatever. Like, she was probably a banshee, dude. Like, she was drafted WNBA, man. That's sick.
Yeah, that is sick. That is really sick.
That's so cool. I'm sure when you said UConn, she's like, "Oh, fuck, I
Oh,
lost
she's
them
the
fucking
best.
10
I
times."
hate
Like, yeah.
guys. I hate
Like
those guys.
those chicks win every year. Like,
Oh, yeah.
Listen,
So,
it's good to be hated. You know what I mean? Like Alabama hated, Patriots hated, right? Like it's just what it is, man. It's the cost on it.
If you're hated,
You're
you're
hated, you're
probably
doing something right. Yeah.
you're probably
doing something right.
no. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. It's very, very interesting. All right. Well, we'll be back tomorrow.
Yep, we're 9:30 tomorrow.
Not 9:30 tomorrow. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so a little earlier.
All right, perfect.
No
See you
doubt.
then.
All right, buddy. See you
All
later.
right, bye.